Good morning, all of you. Oh, no, maybe not good morning. It's good afternoon or good evening, right?
So
good afternoon.
So Francois, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're here doing the presidential edition of, unknown, never done before conversation between two presidents.
My God, what are you going to get out of conversation between two presidents? I mean, actually, we're going to talk a hell of a lot, probably.
Yeah, I think
what
so.
really interests me is, feedback. I would love to know what you got out of that, if you ever did get out anything out of that.
Yeah.
But we're going to proceed with it and talk to each other at length.
Let's start with that. So not everybody knows that I got a call from you in November of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And very humbly, I accepted after you asked me to become the chairman of the jury this year, to become the chairman of the jury of 2020, right? So, I have always been following you, and we have been friends for many, many years, and I've been a very big fan of YDA. And when you asked me, I was like, oh my God, it's such a big deal. And I was so excited, right? Who would have ever said that it would have been this way, right? I actually thought we would be in Cannes, getting on a stage. But then pandemic happened. You went into lockdown, I went into lockdown, I got out of lockdown. So I think the interesting thing is that, I have a very huge respect for you, and having you pushed the YDA for so many years to be what it is and change every year and make it better and better. So I was actually very excited about doing this. And, if I were to give the idea of to people of, what I got out of it, is that I think the YDA is very strong 23 years later. I think it's very strong, actually, thanks to you. I think you always give a direction to it that is great. And I think it's great that we actually did it this year, because I don't think it would have been right to not do it. I don't know what you think about having done it this year, but not everybody knows, but we actually went through the moment in which, when Cannes disappeared, we were kind of wondering whether we would do it or not, right? So having done it, and having now being, people are going to watch this during YDA week. It's going to be 2 days later when people are going to see the awards, and we've gone through judging. And what do you think about having done it? If you were to go back, would you still decide to do the YDA this year?
I probably would, yes. But actually, I never sort of thought that it was going to be what it has been.
Yes.
It has been, I think, a lot of people actually through lockdown, and mostly also at the end of lockdown, generally speaking, whatever their job was,
yes.
Or is, but most of them say, wow, it's a lot more work than usual.
Yes, it's true.
Well,
it's true.
Actually, I will probably, yes, also because we are within ourselves. We are within ourselves, in our room, in our the small office somewhere, and we don't meet anybody except the family, which we actually keep out of the room in which we are, because we need to work, right?
Yes.
So actually, we cannot even be interrupted by whoever either wants to smoke a cup of coffee, chat about something else, bump into your office and say, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? No. So it's continuous, actually, from the morning you start, the evening when you stop. There is no sort of interlude, as we would say.
If you stop. Because sometimes you don't stop, because the lockdown has made it 24 hours.
To be honest, I wasn't really thinking about this. I thought, oh, well, it's okay, although I'm far from being, as you know, a professional, technically speaking. Computers, I come from the days of, paper and pencil and rubber. Okay,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
of course, I mean, the computer has got many advantages for even for somebody like me. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you know, I don't like to manipulate it so much. For me, it's emails to send, to receive, and that's about it. So Zoom, I discovered Zoom, you know,
Yes.
so I didn't know what it
You
was
didn't know
before.
Zoom, yeah? It was new to you, yes.
Actually, fortunately, we had it. So,
Yes.
I mean, to come back to your question, would I still do it? Yes, yeah, I would do it because I was totally conscious of the fact that, you know, YDA is, I was going to say, use a word which is maybe a bit strong, but which I think is real. In reality, it is fragile. It
Yeah.
is fragile because it's non-profit. It's not a festival. It's an award.
Yeah.
So we cannot actually survive within more than one afternoon. You
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
as a festival, you know, it's 2 or 3 days, and then you know, you have entry fees. You have fees to come to the festival, and that. So you can actually have a business rolling with an award. From a business point of view, it's not at all the same thing. And
No.
then the word from Terry Savage comes back into my mind. You know,
Yes.
when I told him at one point, when the Cannes Lions were really interested by the YDA, he said, Francois, you know what? Because I was telling him, but you know, Terry, it's a great brand, YDA. And he said something which is very true. He said, yes, Francois, it's a great brand, but it's not a business.
It's true. No, it's true.
Because it's just to say, when I say fragile, it's fragile financially speaking, but it's fragile as well. If you miss a year,
Yes.
then a lot of those youngsters will not actually have the exposure that they would need to have. Some of those would miss a year.
Yes.
Because a lot of them will not be eligible
Absolutely.
the year after.
Absolutely.
With our regulations, you know. So yeah, I felt that whatever it took, we had to do it. But I was far from really realizing how difficult it was going to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I must say that yes, because I have been surrounded by great people
Yes.
all around. We're not a great team. When I say great, we are a great team, but they're not a big team. Right?
Yes. We're a very small team. Yeah.
It's a very small team. And
Yeah.
this team has been so bloody efficient that
Yes.
we can make it. We could make it, you know.
Yeah. Because
So
one thing, and I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, because one thing that is very interesting to me is that yes, it's true that it's not a festival; it's an award show, and it's an award show that has a name for itself. But at the core of it, there's something that you have always been very interested in keeping, which is the pushing of talent, the pushing of producers' talent, directors' talent, crafting talent, but also the adapting of it within the parameters of the world that you're living. The relevance of the award and the categories that it has, and the categories that it has every year, maybe like new categories that it has, is something that makes it relevant. And I think honestly that the fact that the YDA did not skip a year is actually an amazing thing, because talent doesn't skip a year, right? Crafting doesn't skip a year. Crafting doesn't go into lockdown. And we actually, I think, right from the beginning when we decided to do it, we took advantage of the moment, right? We did creation in isolation. We talked about the talent that was the past winners. We talked to them about how the YDA was an important moment for them before and after the YDA, right? I think all of that made the YDA very relevant, as in it's a good thing that didn't die. And I think it showed in how many entries we had. I think it was, but it also showed on the level of talent. I mean, this year, I mean, I'm saying it as the chairman of the jury, and you know, I've been part of it. You know, I've seen the award show many times, maybe every year. But this year was we all thought that it would be a little bit missing something, but I don't think it really missed anything, right? I think it missed one thing that I think you actually mentioned at the very beginning, because I think you feel it very strongly. You feel that this is a human award. There's humanity in the award show. There's humanity in the jury, and the way the jury works in Cannes when it is in Cannes. And we actually followed that rule when we actually did the juries a couple of days ago, which was to bring humanity in the way we did the Zoom call with 30, 35 members, which to me, it's very heartwarming for you and for me, because it was my jury, but for you as somebody that has been so in love with this award and has brought it forth and has fought for it, I think it was great to see 30, 35 people on a Zoom call that were fighting to do the right thing, to say the right thing, to award the right work. Humanity is something that we try to instill in this year's award. And my personal opinion about the one thing that is missing, and that I miss about being the chairman of 2020, is the fact that people are not going to walk on stage. I think the winners not walking on stage, to me, is just a little bit of the only thing that is going to be missing. There's going to be winners.
And then the gathering afterwards.
Absolutely. That's what I mean. Like that whole,
Yeah. I've always been actually very happily surprised to see that most of the winners, come to the award show.
Yes.
And then they can meet other producers, during this cocktail party that we always organize afterwards. So of course we couldn't do that this year. I hope that emails and Zoom helping.
Yes.
They would still carry on one way or another to get in touch with producers, would get in touch obviously with directors, and the other way around. So but to come back to what you were saying at the very beginning, I mean, there's something that's true, quite interesting, which is maybe a sort of foresight on my part, but also by seeing what was happening every year in YDA.
Yes.
That is to say, when we started in 1998, right? That's quite a while ago. When I start thinking, then I get the shivers. Of course, the only category we had at the time was commercials.
Commercials,
yeah. What else, So, and then, but I can't say. I mean, I would have to go through, 23 years to see. To really study it, and I'm afraid I haven't done that. Maybe one day I'll do it. Is how fast I think I'm under the impression that we moved fast from the advertising or the commercial category into others category, because of obviously internet, new media, technology evolving very fast. We moved on, and when we started and said, the category the film should not be more than 1 minute or 1 minute and a half. I can't really remember. We went up to 2 minutes, and then very quickly we had demands, for can I enter that film, which was a bit longer, and so forth. So then, as we, I moved along with that, and we moved, not just me, and we created also the category which we thought were, moving with their time,
Absolutely.
So that's how we actually progressed in terms of new categories, and also, of course, our ideas of what the world would be, our world would be the following years. That's how it is. Then, I mean, from there on, I mean, I wanted to go back to your remark about the jury. Yes. Usually, every year,
yes,
I have to find, with the help of different, commercial producers association, to find members of the jury.
Yes.
And of course, I mean, the difficulty is that we have to find 27, 25 plus 2 that the journalists so far, so that's 25, and all of them must come to Cannes.
Yes.
Obviously, because the deal is that they dedicate not only their time to judge the first part online, but also one day, which is the Tuesday of the Cannes week, to YDA. So that's a little bit more complicated. It's not extremely difficult, but it sort of makes things a little bit more complicated. This year, we didn't have to do that because we were online. So everybody was going to stay wherever they are, So we jump on the occasion, so to speak, to have a larger jury, not to just have a larger jury, but also to cover more countries.
Absolutely.
That was the idea.
And more typologies of jury members, right? So we had people from the entertainment business, and we had, Oscar-winning directors, and like we had like the not only from different parts of the globe, but we took advantage of the moment. I think the greatest thing about this year, and I think we will remember
good side of this year, of the online judging. Yes. I don't think I would like to go back to that, but because we would lose the humanity you were talking about earlier on. But actually, it's Cannes from that standpoint, or wherever else it could be. I think we need to organize this meeting at the end between the young filmmakers and the producers and whoever around,
Because we have not everybody knows, we have 39 jury members, right, this year. So it was actually, it was also more women than men, right? And it was
just over 51%,
which is, and so it was very diverse, both in gender and in geography and in typology. So it was amazing that they all participated, and I'm seeing it, and you're seeing it with all the emails that are coming back, with all of them responding incredibly, right? Because the talent, again, I'm going to go back to that, but the talent that the YDA attracts is amazing, right? And I think one thing that you are saying, and I will analyze it from the other perspective, right? From one who has probably seen the YDA since '98, and very humbly.
When we started in the ballroom in the Carlton.
The Carlton, I remember.
But it was the only place where we could go. Actually, we couldn't go to the Marriott's at the time,
right?
And we thought that actually the Carlton, if I remember well, were quite happy to welcome us.
Very much. Very much.
But then what happened is that from one year to another, very quickly, the ballroom was not big enough. And also, we had organized, and that was wrong actually, we had organized a bar within the screening rooms. There was several screening rooms. And so people drank and talked a lot whilst we were actually showing films. Now, there was something totally wrong at that time. And that's why we actually, as soon as we could move into the Marriott's, we moved into the Summer Marriott at the time. So that's a part of the little history.
But it's good, right? It's like, because I think one thing that is very clever is to adapt, right? To understand that the world of young directors is not about only commercials. Today it's about the 16 categories that the YDA has, one of which is actually a brand new two new categories this year, right? Best use of humor and dream pitch, which were with dream pitch, which is kind of this new way of having ideas and directors kind of match or get together somehow. So it is very interesting, and I think people are very interested, and I think it's very interesting to actually see the work of the 16 categories and think commercials are not the best category. It's not the categories in which the most creative work is in, right?
It's I mustn't really forget that anyway, everything that I learned personally, it's through commercials. It's through advertising. This is my basis. This is where I learned all my trade, and that's how I became a producer. And actually, it's quite what's interesting between our two sort of ways in our professional life. I know that one of your first job was to join an agency.
Yes, I was.
and it was the same for me.
Yes.
So, and I think it's, I'm not going to say that to be a good producer, you have to start in an agency, but it helps tremendously
Helps.
to understand the overall business of advertising,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And it's also later on, maybe in a way, a little easier to talk to agencies because you've been there before. So you know how they function, you know? And both of us actually have been in agencies which were and which are still really top agencies in the world. So that I think helped my sort of my career tremendously.
Absolutely.
And, so to come back to what we were saying, actually, it's because of this that I've always been attached to the fact that commercials and advertising is just the first step of the ladder to move upwards. Of course, in my time, I was going to say in my time, I hate the expression, you know, but in my time, only very, very, very few filmmakers could move from advertising into, at the time, there was only features, right? So a part of the very few, the happy fews, which number one, everybody knows in the world, which is who is Ridley Scott, right? Apart from him, I mean, there are others, but really he's the best example. You couldn't really move easily from one to the other. Nowadays, that is, you know, a lot, I was going to say easier, but yes, in a way it is. Because the world which is opening up for those filmmakers coming from commercials is much larger than the one we knew, or at least I knew. Just very narrow.
Same,
Even regionally at that time, you know, you would do film in France, then you would do in each country of Europe, the same brand would make films. Now they are global also. So there's less film, that's true. So the competition is tougher from that standpoint because there are probably less film because each country, you know, now benefits from the overall global branding mark.
Absolutely.
You know?
But also production companies have changed, right? Agencies have changed. So the agencies' outputs have changed. And also production companies have changed. And not all production companies do only commercials. There are production companies that do feature films and commercials and content and longer stuff and shorter stuff and digital stuff. And, you know, and digital is, everything is digital. I have a friend that says, what's not digital, right? So it's interesting that
it's a message actually that honestly, that's what we want, you know, is YDA to convey that message that you are talking about today. I mean, if you do only commercials now, I'm going to say something a little bit dreadful, but you're dead. You cannot think only about commercials. And if you do, problems. And even though now, I think it's going to be even more difficult, you know, to just think about commercials. And that's another, you know, discussion. But it's at the same time, you know, because I'm maybe a bit too sentimental, but I think that I don't want to give up this idea that you come from commercial, and from commercial you can go to the highest point, you know, or stage in your professional life. That's a message, broadly speaking, and very optimistically speaking. Let's put it that way.
Well, the reality is
I think those guys we're talking about today, I mean, are so good, but they don't all come from advertising nowadays. But I mean, but some of them actually go to advertising.
Absolutely,
afterwards,
absolutely. You know? Which is what is interesting about the chats that we've had with some of the past winners, right? They don't all come from advertising. They have touched advertising somehow because advertising teaches them something, whether they've come from it or go to it. But also, I think it's interesting that they all feel like they don't need to do only one thing, right? They might be writing a script, or they might want to go into entertainment because there is a chance to move a little easier, not very easily, but a little easier because the borders are liquid, are a little more less, you know, profoundly difficult to surpass, you know. And I think it is very clear from the YDAs of the past years that that is coming into that, right? And it's also coming into the themes of the things that we talk about, right? Ads and commercials and brands start talking about values that are more serious. Films and TV shows talk about values that are a little more serious. And so the YDA has young directors that are less than 3 years old in their career doing things that are a lot serious. We saw things that are very profound, amazingly profound. If it wanted me to go back to being a film student again, because I saw things that were amazing this year. And I don't know what you think about the themes, knowing that the YDA is a crafting award. The themes of the work were very strong this year, right?
Well,
Ideas.
yeah, I'm not going to deny that. It's actually, it has actually over the years become more and more serious.
Yep, it's true.
So, that's the reason. I mean, I have to be careful how I word, my next sentences. But now, last year,
yes.
Actually, it was really about the same thing. That is to say, all the themes were extremely serious. That is to say, always talking about social causes, or sustainability of, what is today actually in everybody's mind to make our life sustainable, more easier to live with. Anyway, all those, and then all the, how can I say, illnesses or things which can really hit you all the way through. So we talk about all this and try to make the others aware of what's going on.
Yes. Awareness.
So which is quite, of course, it's good, and there's nothing better than a film to convey a message, right?
Absolutely.
But at the end of last year, I thought, I mean, those young filmmakers are, generally speaking, I say, a little bit pessimistic, or at least they see life from its dark side, which I totally understand. Because actually life today is quite difficult, let's put it that way, and certainly much more difficult than when I was their age, that's for sure. So I totally understand that. I thought, let's try to actually give them an idea of approaching maybe those subjects in a different way.
Yes.
And that's why we created the best use of humor.
Yes.
Now, I'm thinking, and that actually you're going to react to that.
Yes.
I'm thinking that maybe, that's good. Okay, we keep it. But I was thinking for next year that we're opening up, a can there. We actually could be connected to Dream Beach.
Yes.
In a way. Yes. That is to say, fiction as how can I say, a general term.
Yep.
And I could see this year, in those films that were entered, a few films, fiction.
Yes.
And they didn't pass the shortlist.
Yeah.
They were not bad.
Yeah.
But they purely were fictional.
Yes.
In a way.
Yep. Yep.
So question mark.
No, it's interesting because I think you can analyze in a million different ways, right? Brands, if you were talking about advertising, have become very serious. They talk about values and they talk about their purpose, and they get into the world of purpose-driven, right? Which is something that a lot of advertising people are talking about in these days. And then now, one of the words that is being used a lot is about accountability. You have to be accountable for what you're saying as a brand. Then there's another thing that has happened, which is the democratization of technology. People have this, and cameras are becoming better, and shooting something has become very much easier than when I wanted to become a director as a young filmmaker.
Sure.
Okay. So, but then there's also the evolution of storytelling, right? How do you tell a story? What kind of stories do you want to tell? And then you add to that the fact that the world of documentary filmmaking, telling true stories, real stories, stories that you can actually get to when you walk out of your house and you bump into a story that you're like, oh my God, I have to tell the story of that woman who's sick and goes to the hospital every day, right? I can tell the story of, the guy that got shot 20 years ago, and now, he's somebody that actually goes and helps people within his community, right? Those things together are happening at the same time. Being able to tell a story and being able to tell it well is something that is interesting, because there's a lot of this kind of type of filmmaking that is going out and telling a story that is close to you, close to your heart, maybe not close to you geographically, right? So I think that is interesting to me. So people go and gravitate towards stories, and then you say, and which is right, why don't people go and tell stories that are not real, stories that are in their heads, stories that are of imagination, right? Stories that are of people, kind of like we were telling stories that did not exist, or like they existed only in our heads. So that is a little less existent today. So when you see it, we actually awarded some of them, and as you say, we didn't award some others. It's interesting because it is the moment that is actually bringing those stories out. It's the story.
It is, because I mean, there are those streaming platforms who are waiting for great ideas and great filmmaking. And actually, that's another step that quite a lot of commercial directors have already made, and some will certainly will join them very, very quickly. That is to try to move into the series world.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So obviously, this is a door which is open now to all of them, and that's what we are trying to do. Next step, next year we have to think about it. Again, we've talked already about it, you and me, which is around Dream Pitch with different categories, totally different categories, not the one that which exists under YDA as it is today, but YDA sort of fiction type.
Yes.
That's a dream. So you would have totally different categories, which are totally different from the one we have, and which would include, obviously, fiction. So, and maybe would sort of induce the filmmakers to get into something else, which is at the core, basically, commercials moving on online, branded film, short film. Because as a producer, how did we, years back and still now, look for our new directors? I mean, all the short films that we've seen, which are actually very good. I'm sure that all those awarded young filmmakers this year are going to be, contacted by producers all around the world.
Yes.
Even though they are not commercials. So it's another category that we look at, obviously, and always looked at years back and still now, is music video.
Yes.
But what has totally disappeared, and we actually crossed out of our categories, what we used to call test film, where we'd make what we call, how do they call it in American? I forgot. Sorry?
Spec.
Well, that's spec. Gosh, I made quite a lot of specs in my life, my professional life, years back. Now it wouldn't come to anybody's mind to do that.
Yes, it's true.
We have so many other ways now to show how a director is good, So, and it's in a way probably easier now, although maybe I shouldn't use that word, to convince, a creative director or creative that this director is good for such and such a reason, and not only because he's done one spec film.
No, absolutely, and I think it's also the more directors and producers and jobs interconnect and cross-pollinate, which is the more creatives will understand that cross-pollination is not a bad thing; it's a good thing, so that we can get out of the niche we put directors in, right? So I was talking to Samir, in one of the chats, and he was saying, I was a documentary filmmaker. I didn't know anything about commercials, right? Then somebody calls me and says, you're pitching against a commercial director, and you're a documentary filmmaker, do you want to pitch? And he's like, I'll pitch, but I don't know what it means, So he pitches and he wins. But that kind of is becoming the normality. right? Abnormality, I call it, right? The new abnormality,
Yeah.
because it's normal. It's abnormal to move around, but it's normal to actually think that, you know, you can actually get somebody from one place and put it into another place, which is the reason why when you look at the YDA, you shouldn't look for the commercial directors only. You should look
No,
for
no.
talent, you know,
Yeah, I still
across the board.
want to induce
Yep.
young talents to
Yes.
learn how to make a commercial.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you think of certain film school, and in particular, I'm thinking because I think they are the only ones, so I can actually name them,
Yes.
who has a department totally dedicated, 100% dedicated to
Yes.
commercial, which is
Yes.
the Film Academy in
Yes.
Baden-Württemberg.
Yep.
And when you see the
Amazing.
quality of the work coming out of there,
Amazing.
it's great. It's amazing.
Amazing.
So, yes, I mean, they've helped me to, in a way, to sort of believe and promote commercial directors into the other fields because they are so good.
Yes.
And well, that it's an obvious way to start anyway.
But I don't think there's any award in the world, which is the reason why I love it, have always loved it so much. But any award in the world that takes in consideration so much of the output of young directors, right? It's even the most crafting based awards that we can think of, which we will not name, do not do not think of it as so pervasively in different places. And I think that is thanks to you, right? You experiment things, you try things, you take categories in and out because you're trying to have talent be found in different places, right? So you have a category that we looked at a category which is art films, right? You know, I don't think there's any award show in crafting that has art films, right? Or and it's interesting to me that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it has 100 entries, right? But it does have entries because it means that there are people, directors, that want to enter in that category, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we've had some great films over the
Absolutely.
years.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's a good way also to find directors and make them move on eventually to other things. You know. So it's a category which sometimes question people, but it works. It works. It's not like if we didn't have any entries. So we do. Depending on when it's a little bit up and down. Sometimes we have a lot of them. Sometimes we have less. So that's how it is. But it works.
That's what's great about this award. I think, you know, I don't want to be in Italian. There's a word that is mielenzo, too, you know, full of honey. You know, too, you know, saccharin filled. But I think, you know, I am really glad that we did it. I am really glad, and I loved being the chairman of this year's award because it's going to be remembered as the weird one. As the weird award, as the weird YDA.
I mean, let me tell you also, Karim, that you've been an exceptional chairman. Really, you're full of ideas. You're full of life.
Yeah, I enjoy the business.
And you convey that life, you know, to those you talk to, and particularly, you know, those chats, you invented them, and they're great. They're absolutely fantastic, and it has created a buzz.
Yes.
And I'm talking about again about the team who's surrounding me. I mean, also with this team, we've been able to actually make our social media function really a lot better than over the last few years.
Absolutely.
And needless to say that without social media now, you're absolutely mute, right? So,
and we were present during lockdown. We were probably one of the first people that actually made the creation and isolation projects actually
absolutely we were,
like
no doubt,
before anybody else was doing isolation projects. We were doing isolation projects. I mean, we were so ahead that when we stopped it, people were starting, right?
And we kept we had unfortunately to say no to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I said, if we're in lockdown next year, which nobody hopes, well, we talk again,
I hope not.
we'll have to invent something else.
But I think,
But
Francois, we need to name some of the people that were, because people, I mean, the core team that actually met every single Thursday at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock, sorry, my time, or whatever time anybody else was the core team that actually tried to bring this thing forward. So not everybody
absolutely.
knows that we actually, for the past 6 months, have talked every single week. And in that team, other than me and you, there was Danny Edwards from
There
Chance,
was
and,
absolutely.
and
There
Becca,
was,
who kept us sane. That's the only way to actually mention it. She was our, I don't know, project
she's,
leader.
she's our project manager, and well, she was
Also,
introduced to me by Christina at Panama Picture, who is a
yeah,
great friend and with whom I've worked a lot over the years.
an
You know,
amazing, no, she was an amazing help in everything that we did. Terry, who has been on your side for many years, and
yes,
Terry is our, let's say, you call him the tech geek, but he is the tech geek, but also, has the memory of how to make things better from a platform perspective. Ricky, and who was by your side, but also by our side in a lot of different decisions, and Anke, who is also
I have also very special thanks to Anke, because she's now has been accompanying me for the last 4 years and has been absolutely great help. So you will discover, I mean, our friends will discover the team during the YDA show next week.
Yep.
Because I mean, yeah, I want everybody to know that obviously, I'm not alone. Otherwise, things wouldn't work.
But
That's for sure.
your team is, other than me, who actually obviously followed the whole thing from whenever you called me. There's a team that is not that big, as you said, but it's very, very, very in love with the award and to make it work, right? So, and I think all in the process follow you as, regardless, emotional leader, because you actually are very emotional about this award. You love the award so much that you actually make it work, because you wanted to stay alive and you wanted to change and live. And I think this year it lived really well. So on one side, weird, it was strange, but on the other, really a thanks to you for having done this and made it work. And you can see it from the number of entries that we had and the number of people that actually have said how great it is that we actually continue this. So I think we should learn from this. We learned a lot from this, and we will probably debrief at a certain point, and we'll make it work for next year,
I think that I mean, if we have to, and we're here for that actually,
Yes.
to say what are our motivations.
Yes.
It's mine was has always been, and that thanks to obviously my background,
Yes.
and therefore probably even before being a producer, being an agency producer, and even before being an agency producer, Bill Tragos from the TBWA
Yes.
at the very beginning, and let's not, it was in 1972.
Yes.
Yes, my God. There's very few people in
Don't
the
date
agency.
yourself.
The agency was not even, there was not really a huge agency structure
Yes.
or everything.
Yes.
And when I met Bill Tragos at the time, he said, what? You don't know anything. So you start as traffic, So there was nobody there. There was a few commercials. There
Yes.
was nobody at television or radio or whatever, So, and it was a very good way, traffic, because he said, I started as a traffic manager.
Yes. Yes.
Traffic, not even manager, traffic, And he said, that's
Traffic.
where you will learn everything about advertising and an advertising agency.
Yes.
I
Yes.
will always remember that. So
Yes.
it was true, So I cannot forget the fact that this passion,
Yes.
although to be in an agency like TBWA, although I think he's one of my two mentors in my life, right?
Yes.
And he's a hard Greek American, so very difficult to work with.
Yes.
But God, thank him every day. I thank him every day because he's helped me to develop, this passion that I
Yes.
have for what I do.
Yes.
You know? It's so difficult to reach his goal, or which became my goal,
Yes.
that I became really passionate about it. And I found, let's say, really what I wanted to do by being a producer, and from being a producer to be what YDA is today.
Yes.
This my passionate side. Also, when we say, and I really have to uh, thank not only, of course, the team that we've just talked about, and
Yes.
obviously, they are absolutely fantastic,
Yes.
but all the beginning of the
Absolutely.
YDA,
Yeah.
nothing would have happened if the producers,
Yeah.
the commercial producers of
Yes.
Europe, were
Yep.
not behind it.
Yes.
And that was really when I became president of the commercial association,
Yes.
commercial film producers of Europe.
Yep.
That when I said, "Oh, that's great, but what am I going to do with that?" Because I mean,
Yeah.
as much as I do Europe, my God, how difficult it is to make the political Europe function. But culturally speaking, it's the same.
It's the same.
It's
Yeah.
so different. We
Yeah.
do the same job,
Yep.
but we do it in a different way, and culturally we don't function the same way. We
Yep.
don't have the same regulation, blah blah blah. So I sort of thought, okay, what is the red wine which actually links us together?
Yes.
Well, I believe, I still do,
Yes.
that at the time the only way for us to survive
Yes.
was to discover,
Yes.
promote, and nurture director. And that's how,
Yep.
we talked, all of us, about it, and we all agreed that it was really something which was really common to all of us.
Yes.
And that's how YDA became alive.
That's
And for
fantastic.
many years, let's not forget that it was free for everybody to
Yes.
enter, free for everybody to come in Cannes and everything. So we all sort of paid, to make it work. The
Yes.
Danish association for many years took the responsibility, the administrative responsibility. And after a while, because it became absolutely financially really, which I don't
Yes.
understand,
Yes.
I said, okay, well, I'll take it on. And I did. And yeah, but it was difficult. That's true. But it's still alive.
But
It's
that's the only
so
way to have. I mean, if you hadn't taken it on, it would not have been. It would have died on its own, right?
yeah, probably because nobody wanted it, because it's needless for me to tell you that it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of
It
work.
takes your mind
Yeah.
away from what usually sometimes you have to do to
Absolutely.
make your company survive.
Yep.
So but yeah, I found it. Yeah, it was vital for me to carry on. It
So,
still is, actually.
well, since all of us actually do, our work, and obviously, we in parallel have worked on the YDA this year, and you work on it every year, obviously. Do you take a vacation after the YDA is over?
I'm certainly going to, yeah, now for a few weeks. Let's put it that way. But
Yeah.
I have other things just piling up already behind. But
But
yeah. But I also, you know what? I'm really thinking already about September, October, and so forth. Yeah. It never. I'm not saying that we start YDA in 2021 in September, but we think about it, obviously, because things have got to be sort of. A little change, new things. How do we do it, and so forth? You've
well,
been part of it before. So,
the thing I can say is that I obviously, I'm gonna miss it. It's been very complicated, and I can't even imagine how complicated it is for you to think about it 10 times as more as anybody else that
you have to be
with.
not 100% producer, so to speak. I
Absolutely.
certainly don't produce as much as I used to,
Yep.
like you or any of those producers who are sitting, on our Zoom call every day.
Yes.
Obviously, so I have a little bit more time than anybody else to dedicate to YDA. Now, that hasn't been all the time the case, but
Yeah.
for the last 4 years, let's put it that way, it's been more or less like this. Although I still carry on producing,
Yes.
not much, but a little bit. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. Whenever I'm asked, to do it.
But it's amazing, like it's an amazing show. It's an international show. It's very well regarded. I think it is. one of a kind. I think, again, I am 100% sure that if we had not done it, we would have made a huge, huge, huge mistake.
I think so. I totally agree with that.
Huge,
You know,
huge.
I'm 100% with that.
And you
It's
know, now with the it is easy to say because it's over, and we saw that we had the entries that we needed to have, and the love that it needed to have. You know, the show is going to be, we're recording it a couple of days before, but it's going to be in a couple of days from when we, you know, when we go live.
I'd love to see. I'd love to have the feedback on our show, which we call a show, which is also, I don't know, presentation. No, it's a show. Yeah, it's another live show, but it is a show.
It's a show, right? It's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a recorded show of, you know,
For Cannes, I call it a ceremony rather than a show. But here, as it is only online,
yeah,
it is a show. Really, it's not as a ceremony as it is used.
And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna miss it. You know, next year you're gonna have a new chairman, hopefully, and surely. And I think you have this thing, which is great, because you have your old chairman kind of, or chairwomen also participate.
Yeah.
You know,
but
with
it's good. I mean, you know, I want to create that, you know, club. You know that. Let's call it. I'm thinking of you know, this advisor. Oh, I can't say the word. Yes, thank you.
Yes, the advisory board.
Yes, yeah, advisory board.
And I think the advisory board is there. You know, you have some incredible chairmen of the past, and you have, you know, you probably will have in the future. And I think everybody will kind of has always stayed close to you, you know, and your thoughts. So I think, you know, I can't really honestly thank you enough for the opportunity, and I think we did a great job, and I think we'll have a great show. Honestly, I would talk to you for another 10 hours, but I think we don't have the time, and people are going to get bored by us just chit-chatting about stuff.
I just was wondering, Karim, I mean, if we had,
yes,
both of us,
yes,
I don't like the advice, you know, because I don't like to give advice, but I like a thought to give to our young filmmakers, those of the past, but because they are very recent anyway, you know, even if you're 4 years old, in our world of YDA, it's like you're still very young. But of the future, what would we say to them?
You go first.
Okay, well, I mean, to me, the most important thing is to do whatever we do it with passion.
Yes.
We do it with passion, because if you don't do it with passion, that it's work, and work in a way can be a little bit pejorative.
Yes.
So you have to be, and that's what I was talking about earlier on, although it can be really difficult, really painful sometimes. And I will say also, I will obviously admit that sometimes I say, I can't do it.
Yes.
But I cannot. I have a sort of driving force behind me which says, you know, I love it. I don't know, maybe I would die if I wasn't doing it. I don't want to be dramatic, really, or over dramatic. I don't know. But it's, yes, I would say just one word.
Passion is your word, right? If I were to give somebody an advice, I would, on one side, give an advice that people are, the young directors are actually already doing, which is, do not wait for somebody to commission something. Tell stories that you feel like you need to tell, because today you can tell them, because today technology will allow you to tell them, and you can actually go out and shoot anything really that comes to your mind. So don't get closed into the fact that somebody has to tell you to do something. If you're a filmmaker, you will want to say something, right? The second advice that I would give, which is actually, I think is a little weird to me, is that I sometimes feel like filmmakers that come to me and say, I didn't have a lot of money to do this, right? People talk about money as if it were a limitation. I actually think that you should be proud of what you do and the passion that you put in the film that you make. so that people can actually look at it without you having to say, I didn't have any money. Because personally, I think we live in a world in which you see things that look like $1 million, but they're not made with $1 million. And I think passion, which is your word, and I will use it again, and the love of the craft will show in what you do, even if you don't have the money. Money is not an issue. Commissioning something, having somebody tell you to do something is not an issue. So do what your heart tells you to do, because actually the YDA is exactly that, which is something we've been talking about throughout this hour-long conversation, right? The YDA proves that if you have a film project as a student, if you have a short film project as a filmmaker, if you have a branded film project as a filmmaker that wants to do a short film, you can actually do it. It's amazing to me. It's
nowadays you can. Remember a few years back, again I'm getting back to the old days, you would need a whole crew, 15 people. You would have to borrow all the equipment. It would be heavy. Nowadays, as you point out, it's a lot easier. I would just like to say one more thing about something which has always irritates me.
Yes.
That's in a way, it has nothing to do with what we were talking, but in a way it has. When we talk about execution.
Yes.
Now, that's a word I totally hate. You execute an idea. What the fuck is that?
Yes.
Would you say that Ridley Scott has executed very well such an idea which was drawn out of a book? We wouldn't even dream out of it, right? So execution, it's a word I think which should be banned from our vocabulary.
Okay. So tell me, what is?
We did actually, you and I didn't pronounce the word all throughout this hour. But as we are talking, and we're probably going to be watched by quite a few people, and people from every sort of angle of our community.
Yes.
I'm just trying to tell everybody, don't use that word, because it's really downgrading, in a way, in my mind.
Why is it downgrading? Because it doesn't have inside.
Because you don't execute. You have a vision. You're giving your artistic sense to an idea. You don't execute an idea.
You know what I always say? I say production is the skin you put on an idea so that you can show it to the world. Because without that skin, and the skin, you can choose what kind of skin it is, right? Without that skin, that idea doesn't exist.
You wouldn't say, for example, that an architect has executed very well, whatever, the bridge or the museum, whatever. You wouldn't say that. Pi has executed very well the Louvre, pyramid. So it's so that's why, I mean, this word is, I really believe that it's not taking into account the artistic, vision of a director.
You know why? Because I think
filmmaking is the seventh art.
I agree. And I think the other thing is producing is not about a process. People think that we actually give a process. People think that producing is about, at what time are you going to pick me up with the minivan? It's about, are you going to bring a crane? Are you going to bring a crane, or are you going to bring a Steadicam? I think not a lot. I think the people that think that do not think that we think about the product. We create a product when we produce something. We do it for the final, we sign the projects that we do. We want to sign it if it's actually good, right?
Obviously.
So I get very angry about PR articles that I read about the things that we do as producers, where you don't have the credits of the producers and of the directors.
Shall I remind you a few battles that I've had with the Cannes Lines on that? My God, yeah. I love them, so far, it's actually, it's I was a bit disappointed for them, we can
Yeah.
always criticize them a hell of a lot
yeah.
for many reasons because
Yes.
it's very expensive and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's the only award in the world which gathers
Everybody.
everybody coming from the advertising world
Yeah.
in one spot.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. But
okay.
to me, I have this battle that I'm fighting on my own, but is to credit the credit. Like,
Yes.
you have to give credit to the credit, right? It's like, it's not that if you don't write the name of the director, it's going to disappear, right? Somebody actually thought that, had a vision for that, fought for that, right?
Yeah, but I would say that very often, and that's not actually directed to my friends, the journalists there, but very often the journalists do not give the credits.
No.
Maybe even if they are being given the credits, they don't mention them because the agency doesn't like that.
No.
So the agency pays for obviously
For the
the newspaper,
article.
the magazine or whatever,
Yep.
but the producers never do. So anyway, it's true.
But
credits are extremely important.
Extremely important because we are an addition. It's a creative addition to an idea, right? It's production is creative. Production is a creative addition, right? It's not an executive addition. It's not like, oh, we just executed it the way you wanted. It's not. We fight for things, and directors fight for things, and it's like
executed.
We want to make
come back to that one,
right?
So anyway, filmmakers really have a vision, an artistic vision, and we producers, we are creating.
I agree. So I firmly agree, and I think that's why we've been such good friends, and we've respected each other for so long. Again, I'm going to close this by just saying, Francois, thank you very, very much for the opportunity, and I think we actually, as crazy as it was in the past 6 or 7 months, we put together a fantastic YDA this year. As weird and strange as it was, I think 2020 will be remembered for this, and I hope we will have a YDA in Cannes again next year with the directors getting back up and down from stages. But that said, I think for everybody who's actually gotten to this point and will finish watching this, I think everybody should take advantage of the fact that the winners this year deserve to be respected and contacted and loved and approached, nurtured in the same way they have been in all the other YDAs. I think as cold, as zoomy, as recorded as this year's is going to be, I think regardless, it has the same taste and feel as it always has. So
yeah, I really would like that. You're absolutely right to really underline this part, because I would really like all the producers who listen to us or who like us to really make sure and try their best to contact them, either to get work with them, or even just to say that you love their work. What they did is really fantastic, but just give them more hope anyway. That's I think it's really one of the most important things. Karim, thank you.
No, thank you very much. I think
no. Thank you. You've been a great chairman. That's for sure. You've helped us tremendously. It has been an exceptional year because we've had also an exceptional chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to cry now, but don't make
Please
me cry.
Do. Me too.
But that said, just know that I will be, as much as you will ever ask me, part of anything and any help that you deserve for this, because you put it on your shoulders every year, and I think you deserve the help of anybody that will actually help you bring this thing forward for the next maybe 100 years, even after we're done, because this is a great show.
I don't know how old I am. I will be.
No. It's like that's why I'm not going to be here either. It's like Thank you very much, Francois, and thank you for this one-to-one, because it was very, very, very fun. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Ciao. See you at the show.
Bye.
Ciao.